the 15th of the 7th, 2025. The time is 24 minutes past 8. And as always, that means there are very many F1-centric threads at which we need to pull. We're going long today. Talk It Tuesdays. We will talk about Arvid Lindblad. We will talk about rumours about Checo Perez. So too Valtteri Bottas as it pertains to Cadillac F1 and their lineup into 2026. We'll talk about all of the Maximilian Verstappen stuff because it's blowing up. The legendary one that is Eric Van Haren coming out and debunking all the myths, talking about what it really is as far as Red Bull Racing, Christian Horner, Oliver Mintzlaff et al. Who done it? Where's Max Verstappen going to go? Is there really a contract at Mercedes that's already signed? Does Christian Horner no longer being a team principal at Oracle Red Bull Racing mean, therefore, that Maximilian Verstappen's probability of being a Red Bull Racing driver into 2026 does one of these or one of these? It's going to get techier than techie things. And we'll go back and forth, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, the humanity indeed. It's chaotic. John Perry, Safak, Benzi, James, it's getting tech. I apologise for being a poorly light, but sometimes life be lifing, if you understand. Oh, and by the way, Arvid Lindblad, the one that many say is the next Maximilian Verstappen, the next Red Bull champion on the Red Bull Racing Junior Programs books. He was testing, wasn't he? Word on the F1 curb is that he completed a warm-up program in the morning, and then in the afternoon he focused on race pace, say Motorsport Italy, with three fairly consistent 11-lap stints, and finally a qualifying simulation consisting of 3 fast 2-lap stints on soft compound tyres. Very few mistakes, if any, of the material unforced variety, the best of which was in the low 118s. This is Motorsport Italy giving credence to the fact that Arvid Lindblad has the minerals. He has it in a way that Tsunoda-san, nor Liam Lawson, nor even Isaac Hadjar. You'll recall Arvid Lindblad is the dude who looked Lando Norris in his face and said, you know what, mate, I want you to remember me. I will see you in Formula 1 in 5 years' time. And listen, if fairy tales are fairy tailing, that tells you all you need to know about Arvid Lindblad. Going well in F2 when he did his FP1 session a couple of race weekends ago, quicker, closer to Maximilian Verstappen than was Tsunoda-san. Again, if you're gauging potential, that tells you all that you need to know, right? Not consistency, but how bright these guys' flames burn on any given Sunday. Arvid Lindblad potentially set to be the next one. Oh, and by the way, Motorsport Week apparently has been talking to Maximilian Verstappen about all the chaos, the rumour, the speculation. Where are you going next year, Max? It sounds like Mercedes is a done deal. Its performance clause, its stipulations, it's Christian Horner. You said last year that you need a semblance of harmony, the team personnel, and a car capable of winning races and therefore championships. Now, as at July of 2025, you have none of the aforementioned Maximilian Verstappen. So what's going on, sir? Max Verstappen told Motorsport Week the following, and I quote, "For me, it's not about 2026 or whatever. I just focus on what I have ahead of me, work with the team. Of course, a lot of people make up assumptions, but that's not me." Max Verstappen continues, "I think no one can say 100% for sure where they will be whether they will be fully comfortable next year. There is new rules and regulation." He continues, quote, "Because the previous generation of cars, we had the exact opposite. We were off in the beginning and then towards the end, convergence settings, 2021 settings, we actually managed to make it work." But then, Maximilian Verstappen, the only difference as versus now is that you had Adrian Newey as a bum in seat. So too Jonathan Wheatley, the legendary sports director that tells the FIA what they can do. So photographic memory, so different, so great, so forensic is his levels of photographic memory. So too Marshall, Newey, Courtenay. You had all these god tier ones. Now, sadly for Maximilian Verstappen going forward, none of the aforementioned are bums in seats at Red Bull Racing. Therefore, the complexion, the game has changed. Max Verstappen continues, quote, "So sometimes it's very difficult to explain everything, why or how things are so good or so average. There will be many unknowns anyway for next year," continues Max. "The only thing that I have to do is drive whatever I have fast." He continues. Techier than techie things, chat. This from Maximilian Verstappen, trying to allay fears that he's going to leave Red Bull Racing, towing the party line. Max continues, quote, I think it's also, when you look at the previous regulations, I think no one would have expected McLaren to suddenly do that. They were last and now they are first. Sometimes, continues Max Verstappen, yeah, it takes a bit of time to get everything together. I think now it was the opposite for us. We had everything really well from the start of the regulations, and towards the end it was a bit of a struggle for us because everybody left Maximilian Verstappen. Mention no names: Adrian Newey, Jonathan Wheatley, Courtenay, Rob Marshall. That, continues Mr. Verstappen, is something that we have to figure out why. Why didn't we have the same kind of progression as maybe some other teams? Well, Checo Perez can help you with that, Max Verstappen. Not that you're unaware. I understand, Mr. Verstappen. Maximilian Verstappen has to toe the party line. There is agency in that and potential upside as far as his contract renewal. The negotiations are concerned. However, it's different now because the personnel are different. Checo Perez came out in an interview recently and said the following, didn't he? That you can track very clearly Red Bull and their RB21 iteration of car and its demise right alongside the leaving of the team of one Adrian Newey, the last airbender. As soon as he left, I understand that correlation does not imply causation, but as soon as that dude left and took his hands off of the red pen, all of a sudden it's like Red Bull and that can't fix an RB21. So what are we doing here? I would contend that Maximilian Verstappen is doing very well, towing the party line quite brilliantly. But then it gets techier than techie things, because Eric Van Haren, legend of F1 journalism for the avoidance of doubt, or F1 journalists are created equally, but some are created more equal than others. This guy is one of the god tier ones, very close to the circumstance that is Max Verstappen and Team Verstappen, Raymond Vermeulen, Nostradamus Verstappen. And he's come out and he's debunked. He's taking no hostages, pulling no punches, saying that all of this is nonsense as far as the speculation on Maximilian Verstappen's future is concerned. In the first instance, let me show you guys this. You'll have seen this over the past 24, 48 hours. Somebody posted this on Twitter saying that this is Maximilian Verstappen and Toto the boy who cried wolf about to board the very same private jet. This, ladies and gentlemen, as verified by Eric Van Haren of The Telegraph, is fake, debunking, AI settings, not to be taken seriously. Didn't happen. It's 2020. It's a photo of Toto boarding a jet, transposed or even juxtaposition alongside a Photoshop of Maximilian Verstappen. It is fake. Therefore, don't buy into that. Does that mean, therefore, that Maximilian Verstappen wasn't on a yacht that was docked right alongside Toto the boy who cries wolf's yacht soiree? Not necessarily. You've got to pull at these threads, delineate between the fact and the fiction. And it is hard, ladies and gentlemen. That's why I defer to the legend that is Eric Van Haren in this instance. He asked the question, where will Maximilian Verstappen be driving in 2026? It's clear that the situation hasn't changed much yet. Of course, it's performance clauses and stipulations, but potentially in the summer break proper, not as at the 31st of July. That Maximilian Verstappen still has a contract through to 2028, but indecision is how you would characterise this circumstance. He says talks have been taking place behind the scenes with Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff, but that doesn't automatically mean necessarily that a transfer after this season is definitely on the cards. Choose your words very carefully. Eric Van Haren sets us up with an F1 straw man of sorts. It doesn't mean that Max Verstappen has signed already, nor will he definitely sign for Mercedes. But I will put forth the following rebuttal, the following supposition. Does this mean that this is the least likely outcome now? I would argue that it goes up by the day. Max Verstappen wants nothing more than to win races and therefore championships. And the probability, the odds that he can do that in his current team at Red Bull, do one of these. I would contend that Christian Horner leaving that team makes it weaker, not stronger. I understand PR, allegation gate, common law issues in UK. I get all that. A deluge, a plethora of team personnel having left and soon to leave had Christian Horner stayed as a bum in seat. I get all that. But if we're having this conversation under the umbrella heading of results and performance. Caesar at the gate in Christian Horner. His was the house, or Red Bull even was the house that Christian Horner built, was it not? Eric Van Haren continues. As previously reported, it will be known in a few weeks where Max Verstappen will be driving next year. A few weeks lines up perfectly with the summer break. Remember, we have Spa-Francorchamps, and then if memory serves, we have Hungary. Shortly thereafter, we will get some news, says Eric Van Haren, and it will be announced whether Max will stay at Red Bull through to 2026 or leave and go to Mercedes or potentially Aston Martin maybe. First up are the races that Belgium and Hungary, continues Van Haren, after which the summer break. Rumours of a bargaining chip with Red Bull's management, Horner out, so Verstappen will definitely stay, are being dismissed as nonsense by all parties. Forget it, ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury. If you think for a second that Horner leaving somehow guarantees that Maximilian Verstappen will stay, then you are barking up the wrong tree. It is nonsense, says Eric Van Haren. For the avoidance of doubt, all F1 journos are created equal, but some are created more equal than others. That Van Haren saying this, again, underscores it. Double underline, full stop, new paragraph. Rather, the Red Bull leadership is still terrified that Max Verstappen will leave after all, after they've sacked Christian Horner. It will soon become clear whether Mintzlaff and his associates can breathe a sigh of relief. Ladies and gentlemen, the F1 jury, this is all still to play for. Do you know what I mean? This is a developing news story. Red Bull are terrified that they've made the Queen's sacrifice decline move in getting rid of Christian Horner, but yet and still they could lose Maximilian Verstappen. Okay, so it's a Queen's sacrifice decline worth playing ultimately, because if Christian Horner stays, more than likely you do one of these to the probability that Maximilian Verstappen, four-time champion, leaves. But yet and still, there is no guarantees in this weird and wacky world that they call F1, and so drive a silly season. Eric Van Haren continues, talks about what's been said. A couple of different things have been said. In the first instance, you know that Martin Brundle of Sky Sports F1, the internationally syndicated broadcast, he had some things to say. He said, you know what, Team Verstappen have been throwing some bombs, some grenades at Christian Horner, and they are in no small part to blame for Christian Horner's dismissal. Eric Van Haren says, that's bull feathers. What are you talking about, Martin Brundle? You're going on like you're behaving as if you are a person that's in the know, but you are not. Eric Van Haren says that had nothing to do with it. That the decision ultimately rests with the shareholders. It's Oliver Mintzlaff, it's Mark Mateschitz, it's the Austrians, it's Salzburg, it's Red Bull GmbH, who have had an axe to grind at the altar of Christian Horner's tenure. And this has been going back a while. I won't go through the histrionics of it from inception to completion. You get it already. It was born of Christian Horner trying to spin off Red Bull Racing, leveraging British financiers. So too misconduct and allegation gate. So too losing by dint of the aforementioned all of the God tier ones, Jonathan Wheatley, Adrian Newey et al. That's how this thing started. It was a disrespect in Mark Mateschitz's eyes to the legacy of Dietrich. Oh, and by the way, lest we forget that Dietrich desperately wanted a collaboration not between Red Bull Powertrains and Ford. What are you talking about? Bringing shame on the family name? No. They wanted Porsche. Ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury, sporting excellence, motorsports, upper echelons of that's who Dietrich Mateschitz wanted. That's why they were so close to agreeing 50% as far as taking a majority, near as makes no difference, majority sharehold in Red Bull Racing. Christian said, you know what, in the aftermath, post Dietrich Mateschitz world, said, you know what, you guys can back up. You want all this control? No, I am Caesar at the gate. I am team principal of Red Bull Racing, and thou shalt not enter. Gets techier than techie things. Here we go. So Eric Van Haren continues, as previously reported, it will be a few weeks until we know where Max Verstappen will be driving next year. The bargaining chip of Christian Horner is a nonsense. It's nothing. It's not open and shut case, Johnson. Okay, so that increases the probability of Maximilian Verstappen staying, but not beyond reasonable doubt. It's still a conversation. It's still a new story that's developing. Eric Van Haren continues. that it was Oliver Mintzlaff that pulled the plug over a Zoom to the likes of Mark Mateschitz, Charlie Mavidja and Helmut Marko was in the room too, until post-Spa-Francorchamps, the Belgian Grand Prix and the Hungarian Grand Prix. We won't know where Maximilian Verstappen is going therefore, because the news story is bloody well developing in real time. This is what Eric Van Haren says. There will be a lot of fishing with the role of the Verstappen camp or clan often under scrutiny, but insiders know, says Eric Van Haren, that it was Oliver Mintzlaff, the former boss of RB Leipzig, Red Bull Leipzig, who took matters into his own hands and made the decision to fire Christian Horner. Therein lies your smoking gun, ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury. It wasn't Helmut, it wasn't Charlie Mavidja, it was Oliver Mintzlaff who ultimately pulled the trigger. And of course the 2% that the Charlie Mavidja family have transferred into a holding company, maybe that has something to do with it, and depending on who you're talking to, it absolutely does. James Allen says of course that has something to do with it, that the Charlie Mavidja wanted to keep Christian Horner and could keep him because they were the majority shareholders. However, now that extra 2% is in a trust, a holding company, an umbrella company, then no longer do they have power of veto. Other people say that that's nonsense, that the only reason why the 2% was transferred to a holding company was for tax purposes only, avoidance, not evasion. It gets techier, ladies and gentlemen. Buckle up, we've got to go through it with the approval from Red Bull. Here we go. So Oliver Mintzlaff pulled the trigger with the approval from the Charlie Mavidja family and Mark Mateschitz, son of Dietrich. Suggestions about the influence of the Verstappen camp are nonsense, says Eric Van Haren, that Martin Brundle hasn't got a Scoobies about what he speaks. Gossip on the internet and in the mainstream media fabricated fake photos of Maximilian Verstappen, mention no names to the right hand side of your screen, fabricated fake photos, self-proclaimed experts claiming self-proclaimed experts. Yeah, Eric, I take exception to that moniker, sir. Self-proclaimed experts claiming to be certain that the four-time champion is leaving Red Bull. The sensationalist frenzy around the 27-year-old driver from Limburg seems to be getting crazier by the day. I will defend that, however. Allow me to put forth this supposition. What else would you expect, Eric Van Haren, from the four-time champion? What else would you expect? This could be the biggest move in F1 history. You don't think that in an AI era that you're going to get that sort of stuff. It comes par for the territory, the cost of doing business. If you're Max Verstappen and a four-time champion, having negotiations, quite open talks per Toto Wolff and King George Russell of Kings Lynn, Norfolk, about moving over to the boys and girls from Brackley and Brixworth. What are we doing here? Eric Van Haren continues, the sensationalist frenzy around a 27-year-old from Limburg seems to be getting crazier by the day. No kidding, Sherlock. I don't know what else you would expect. Like, oh, the human, like, it's going to happen. It is Max Verstappen, for Pete's sake, and it is him leaving the team with whom he started his career in F1 to go to the arch enemy in Mercedes. Toto, the boy who cried wolf, said, you could not write it. It is pant-wetting theatre. Eric Van Haren continues, the photos of Verstappen and Wolff were widely circulated last weekend are clearly fake, fabricated using AI footage of 2022. Numerous anonymous sources via social media and email also claimed that Max Verstappen signed a contract with Mercedes long ago, something that absolutely nobody can substantiate with evidence. That's interesting. His use of the phrase cannot substantiate, meaning what? That Max Verstappen didn't sign one. Well, that you stopped short of saying that, didn't you, Eric? Interesting, that. Interesting. Maybe it's ever so slightly a nothing burger, but I think it's going to get techier than techie things over the next couple of weeks, per Eric Van Haren. Oh, and by the way, something else that I wanted to highlight. Rumour is that Checo Perez will be announced as the Cadillac F1 driver as soon as the Hungarian Grand Prix race weekend. We spoke earlier that potentially Valtteri Bottas would be the first over the line as far as Cadillac F1, that they have agreed, some rumours and reports say, a contract, a deal in principle, and that will be announced soon. Now it sounds like Checo Perez is potentially first past the post, and oh, the humanity. Imagine that it's revolving door. Christian Horner is coming out of Formula One out of one side, and in walks Checo Perez. What are we doing, chat? With 18 million very firmly in hand. You cannot write this, chat. That the weird and wacky world of F1 is impossible theatre. You couldn't even suspend your disbelief that much. That Christian Horner walks out just as Checo Perez walks in. What are we doing here, ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury? You couldn't write it, but they would not believe you. John Perry, you're an absolute legend in this piece, man. I appreciate you each and every single time. Streaming Summer Break in the Discord, but you have to be a member to join the fun. Absolutely, mate. Crackosaurus nails it. Hits the nail on the head, as always. At some point, if you are a member of the channel, at some point, we're going to start to get the streams on in the Discord, so you guys, so we can have a proper chin wag. Do you know what I mean? Unrushed and untrammeled by the time demands of real life. Matthew Brown says, I truly don't get the narrative that Max should wait till 27 to decide from there. Yes, we don't know what will be best, but I trust James Allison and HPP prepare a package better than Red Bull. Go on then, Matthew Brown, since you brought it up. There's a couple of different threads at which we need to pull when we're talking about Max waiting till 27. The problem with that is this, and I think OG Zilla said it yesterday. If you wait and George Russell in a rocket ship of a Mercedes wins by, I don't know, 50, 60 points, then why do you need Max Verstappen anymore? It's chaotic. I understand that you could have an Alan Prost scenario, Williams in 93, agree the contract ahead of time, right, as soon as you get whiff of durable competitive advantage. But you can make the case that you don't need that additional. Obviously, Max comes with lap time and durable competitive advantage. He's a better driver than George Russell, but 100 million a year better. I don't know. There is something called the law of diminishing returns even, and I'd argue that that's very apropos, that it applies to this circumstance. James Allison, James Allison is saying that what James Allison said on a podcast, a Mercedes AMG Petronas podcast, a debrief of one of the race weekends, is that the feeling around Mercedes is not dissimilar to what it was in 2014. And if past his prologue, that means a couple different things. Durable competitive advantage as far as their power unit. They had anywhere between 30 to 40 brake horsepower, depending on who you're talking to, over the rest of the grid. As at 2014, they nailed it. Split turbo hybrid settings, dominance there on in. From 2014, they won everything through to 2021, for Pete's sake. That's unprecedented levels of dominance, is it not? And if James Allison is saying that potentially they've expedited somehow for the trajectory, the development of their power unit in the same way as they did for 2026, in the same way as they did for 2014. Oh, the humanity for the rest. Houston, we have a problem. And Adrian Newey has been saying this of late, right? He said that potentially one of the teams is the type of rule and reg set, 50% electric, even 50% ICE, internal combustion, meaning therefore it kind of opens the door to one of the teams absolutely nailing it and getting out of the gate, just like Mercedes did in 2014. It's going to be techie, and in all likelihood, they're not gonna come out of the gate in 2026 10 line astern. Do you know what I mean? There is going to be one or two teams who will make a jump, just like McLaren have done over the past couple of years. And that's something, to be fair, chat. Let me put forth this. You said this the other day about McLaren. Why would Max Verstappen go to Mercedes as the works team when the customer in McLaren are having such success? Like, it's a techie thing, and to be fair, a friend of the channel, Peter Windsor, has been saying this for the longest time. Why would you go? The antithesis to that argument about George Russell coming out and nailing it in 2026 is this: 2027. Why would you not come out that, if you're Max Verstappen and you have the pick of the litter, why would you not come out and just wait and see what happens in 2026? Understand which one of the teams, if any, has durable competitive advantage of the material variety, and just go with them. Just like Prost did in 1993, it's obvious, right? See see the extent to which Nigel Mansell is dominating in 92 and sign with Williams for 93. This isn't rocket science, right? Nor is it Fermat's last theorem. This is basics. This is counting. No, I don't know. He's got some decisions. Ultimately, all I know is this: the Maximilian Verstappen will have his pick of the litter He's the driver on the grid, the next generational one after Sir Lewis. So, of course, the likes of Toto and whoever else, Lawrence Stroll, they will drop kick in the chest a George Russell or a Fernando Alonso with a view to get a whiff of the signature of Maximilian Verstappen. Max has every reason to go and very few reasons to stay. Jomo, you're a legend. Van Horen is a joker. Max will stay at Red Bull, but yeah, doesn't generate any visitors or likes. Anyway, you heard it here first. You're welcome, says Jacob. Bloody Nora, Jacob. Are you convinced? What makes you so convinced? Go on and let's make the case, since we're having a conversation about it. Max has said that he wants to, a couple of different things, that he would love to stay a one-team man for the duration of his F1 career. And that would, of course, be it engenders loyalty at Red Bull. But I just think, I don't know, there's so many people that's left that team. There's so many people that are still yet to leave that team, who are about to leave that team. It's just not the same. Listen, look at this. Christian Horner, Adrian Newey, Marshall, Jonathan Wheatley, Corton. That team's not the same team. It looks and feels different, and so it would be foolhardy of us, naive of us as F1 fans, to expect them to perform in the same way that they have been doing for the past 4 years, as near as makes their difference. They were God tier once upon a time, but the way that you win races and therefore championships, oldest truism in F1 history, is to acquire and keep good people for as long as possible. And they have done anything but that. They've allowed all the good people to leave at the altar of Christian Horner's allegation gate. Easy G, nothing, nada, niet. Oh, it's techie. I can't wait. We're going to be reporting on it in real time. I don't care what anybody else says. Eric Van Haren or anybody else. Max to announce a new team deal for 2026 to 2028. It will happen over the next couple of weeks, Benzie. And maybe, I mean, you've heard the chatter that maybe Red Bull do one of these, and maybe it's, instead of racing bulls, maybe it's Verstappen bulls. What's going on, Steve? You're a legend. Maybe they give him everything, right? Maybe they allow him, just like the UFC allowed Conor McGregor to be a title sponsor. They've got to bend over backwards now. They have Red Bull brand ambassador for they're going to have to give him everything, Zero. They've got to give him everything. It's double or quits. Do you know what I mean? What are you going to do? This is like love and basketball now. They have to go all in. They have to, because if they lose Max Verstappen, there is not that team. Almost, as near as makes no difference, ceases to exist. I don't understand one thing. Why did we hear so many rumours about Aston Martin and Max and now nothing? So what happened there? So it's a good shout. In the first instance, Safa, because I'm covering the sport, somebody said it somebody in the comments said to me today, well, first it was Brundle saying how much he loves Max Verstappen and how brilliant Max Verstappen is, how he drinks from the fountain of sporting endeavour par excellence. And the next second it's Martin Brundle saying how rubbish Max Verstappen is. And the next second Max is saying that Team Verstappen, what you've got to understand, I would describe it in terms of trading, that the Overton window that is F1 news is spot, meaning therefore if you blink your eyes and come back a millisecond later, things may have changed. This started a couple of weeks ago before the Austrian Grand Prix. We were convinced that Christian Horner wasn't even going to last the Austrian Grand Prix. That was the rumour. Everybody saying Christian Horner was going to get sacked. And when he didn't get sacked, and I'd been talking about it, people said, oh, Cameron, Van Gaal, or what are you talking about, Cameron? You're rubbish again. You don't even pass the Mendoza line. And then all of a sudden you come to find out that it wasn't that I was wrong, it's that I was delayed, that there was a timing difference, and that was all. So the Overton window of F1 does one of the, it changes, it's whimsical, fleeting, Safak. And so I think it had been leaked about Aston Martin that some of the C-suite execs over there were flirting their eyelids or flittering their eyelids, flirting with sponsors and dangling as a carrot that Maximilian Verstappen will be racing with them at some point in the not too distant future. That's where that came from. There was rumour and talk, again, not reputable publications, but there was talk about a 1 billion offer to Maximilian Verstappen in perpetuity for as long as his F1 career lasts. And that doesn't, I don't know, I thought that passed the smell test. Would you back against that having happened? Lawrence Stroll settings. The dude is pummeled 500 million Great British pounds into the factory and another 50 million as far as their win tonight. Absolutely not. Like Lawrence Stroll would kill, just like Toto Wolff, to get his hands on a Max Verstappen. If there is such a thing as a guarantee as far as championships of the drivers' variety is concerned, then that would have a name. Sons and Adrian Newey is a mechanical aerodynamic goat. That dude would have a name, and his name is Maximilian Verstappen. Again, there's no such thing as guarantees in F1, and one needs to humble themselves before the reality that is lower lap time around the track. Beg ball versus $1 billion Stroll. Benzi's going to get mad. Victor says, Franz Hermann in a Merc. Max has always stayed low, and he's shorter. He's shorter just that by bailing. He's shown that just by bailing Chip in the Hornergate. Now all the guys he feels loyalty for are gonzo. I'm Dutch and I know the kind of animal that he is. Victor, he might just go. I don't think the Christian Horner. Well, I mean, Eric Van Haren's telling us as much, right? But I don't think the Christian Horner thing. I don't think it puts Max Verstappen leaving out of reach. I would argue that the probability is lower, but not zero. Not zero. Max, do yourself a favour and leave Red Bull while you can, says Lazy. Oh, the humanity. You think it's possible Max still goes to Aston even after all this Mercedes? I think the deal, not impossible, but not plausible, Easy G. This is a difference in extents now, and not. I just don't think. I think Mercedes are closer. Ultimately, look, you can argue the devil's advocate thing and say that Maximilian Verstappen wants to be loyal to Red Bull. He'd love to finish his career in the blue car. I think that's the romantic thesis, but the antithesis to that is this: that Max Verstappen all he's ever wanted to do. He's a race winning machine, an F1 race winning machine. All he wants to ever do is win races. All the sponsorship thing, yeah, that's cool, fine and dandy. Those are hoops through which Max has to jump through. But all the while knowing that all he wants to do is jump in the car and drive it as fast as possible and win races consequently, and therefore championships. All Max wants to do, full stop, new paragraph. So I don't know. Where is he most likely to be able to do that, given Red Bull's most recent history and the fact that Christian Horner's no longer the Caesar at the gate? I don't know. It's techie. George Russell revenge arc at Aston. So go on then. George has bought himself a new yacht. Have you seen that? He's confident. He knows he's going to be in F1. Somebody will pay a lot of money for George Russell. It's just who? Ain't no telling who. Mercedes, will it be? I just don't know. The question is, do you take a gamble with Ford Power Unit? Listen, Dr. Rob's an in the know guy on Twitter, more acutely aware of the Red Bull complex and circumstance than most. And he said the other day that he thinks Mercedes have the whip hand, as so many have done before him, and that potentially Red Bull maybe third, maybe fourth, as far as the extent to which they've expedited for their power unit journey. Maybe. And that's Dr. Obbs, who's a Red Bull guy, saying that. So that tells you all you need to know. Sons, by if any Dr. Obbs bias were in effect, he'd be bigging up the extent to which Red Bull Racing have expedited for their power unit's learning curve. Mert does seem to be the safest bet with these regs, and I tell you what, AZG, quite literally 85% Merc, 15% Aston. Oh, Red Bull is a powerhouse in the whole world. Were a powerhouse, so go on then. Mert seems to be the safest bet. We went through the odds a couple of weeks ago, didn't we? That the odds have diminished massively, meaning that a lot of money is coming in for Maximilian Verstappen leaving. The odds were 2-1, meaning therefore that the probability, if you run a simulation of 100 times, the probability of Max going to Mercedes was, before all of these shenanigans, 1 in 33% of the time. Now it's much more. So the odds are much less. It's like 45% of the time it's doing one of these in real time. If you're to trust the odds makers, it's techie. It is. I don't know. Verstappen, Aston, Adrian. So Seema, I read something the other day about Adrian. I always thought that Adrian and Max were like good friends, first name terms. that they had a mutual respect, knowing all the while that Adrian knew it, if he designs a car, that Max Verstappen will drive it to victories and potentially championship. Somebody said the other day that, Bazman, you're a legend. You're a legend, Bazman. Somebody said the other day, and somebody that I trust, and he comments on the Connor picture. Somebody said it the other day about Adrian Newey and Max, that they didn't even get along, that they weren't friends, that they didn't even want to be that. Not that they hated each other, but they didn't. You know what I mean? That they had a working relationship at best. That you would never catch them out for drinks together. So I don't know. George was at Wimbledon, as was Ollie. Who else? Carlos. I didn't see Carlos at Wimbledon. I think Max has been suspiciously friendly to. I know, modern day John. Yeah. When he yeeted into his side body, it's like, yeah, all rookies make those mistakes. It's like, hang on, is that even what? Who are you, and what have you done with Max Verstappen? Was my reaction, because that didn't sound like Max at all. Like, no, Max normally is less tolerant and has much less patience for those sort of criminal cardinal sins in an F1 car. I think the only thing keeping Max at Red Bull is him wanting to end his career. I think it is romantic now, and I think the romanticism is more than partially offset by Max wanting to. He just wants to. He's a winning machine. All of that stuff, and like with George Russell and whatever. Like he just wants to win. Sometimes to a fault, right? It permeates out of his every it's him. He just wants to win. Full stop, new paragraph. That's who Maximilian Verstappen is. And he makes all of his decisions in that image at the altar of victories of both the championship and race variety. So what do you expect? Kimmy's a mini Max stalker. He likes him, doesn't he? He's a big fan, because I think he wants to be like him. Ergo, the fastest one on the grid, potentially. Logically, Pierre Vacher, I mean, flipping Nora Benzi. Like, all the promise. You know what? There's a clip that I wanted to play for you guys. I'll play it very quickly at the altar of a couple of different things. I'll give you the context. So James Allen, friend of the show, went on the Red Flags pod, and on there I had the same question earlier without any answer. Viri, sorry, I can't. I desperately want to capture all of them. Viri, I tell you what, if you joined and had your name in bright, sexy font, then I might be more. I can't capture all of them, Viri. I apologise for that. But go on, James Allen was answering the question about Christian Horner. They were discussing all the factors leading up to his demise, John. When and if Max leaves, who wrecks him first? Yeah, ain't no telling, John. So go on then, James Allen was asked the question on the Red Flags pod about the context that led up to Christian Horner's demise. And the question was put forth like this. Well, why not get rid of him 12 months ago? Why now specifically? What is it about the timing that meant that Christian Horner had to be dismissed now? Surely you would do it 12 months ago when you had Jonathan Wheatley in situ, Adrian Newey to help him, if indeed Wheatley were to supersede Christian as team principal. Why now? And James Allen made the point that this time last year, Victor, you're a legend. This time last year, Christian could have gone into a conversation with Charlie Mavidra, then the 51% owners of Red Bull GmbH, the energy drinks company, or the parent. Then Christian could have gone and said, well, listen, look, check my track record. Give me the keys to Red Bull and I'll turn this around. Have I let you down previously? You were about to sack me in 2021, and look how I pulled the victory out of the flames of defeat. Look what I did then. Just leave it to me. Leave the powertrain thing to me. Leave the marketing to me. I will nail this. And then that argument held water, right? Because failure, as far as Red Bull, was a mere blip. In longer form, they'd been doing nothing but winning since 2021, drivers and constructors for the most part. Like, so you can't even make the case against Christian Horner. Ergo, how, why, and what for would you sack him? It just didn't make sense. 12 months later, however, the case just diminishes, both in terms of its size and consequence almost. Like it's hard to make the Christian Horner case, isn't it? So last year, James Allen was very good. James Allen is a legend, and he's a proper legend. It's a privilege to have him on the channel and talk with him. So in fact, let me not even say that. Not too many people know who James Allen even is, unless you were watching F1 for a while. The Drive to Survive generation. I mean, it's an indictment on the state of F1 that not so many people know who James Allen is. One of the go-to. If James Allen were on your broadcast alongside Martin Brundle still, I'm telling you, you'd have infinitely more attention dollars on Formula One in 2025 July of than you do now. I'm telling you, he's just a god tier. I will never forget, since you guys have got me nostalgic now, I'll never forget the 2007 Silverstone Grand Prix. It was Sir Lewis Hamilton, and it was whether he can do it on the big stage and put it on pole, and then he just builds it better. I don't know. Alex Jakes is good, but nothing on James Allen. Go on then. There was something I was going to say and I forgot that. Maximilian the movie. Maybe Benzi, along with the F1 movie sequel of, because it's done so ridiculous numbers in the box office the first couple of weekends. Victor, you're a legend. He will only drive for Aston if Lance doesn't drive. I think they'll keep Lance. I think they will keep Lance. That's what I was going to say. James Allen. I wanted to show you this. So James Allen says last year Christian Horner could go to Charlie Mavidra, Mark Mateschitz, Oliver Mintzlaff, Helmut Marko even to a lesser extent, and say, listen, I make this team tick. This team is nothing without me. Look where you were in 2005. Look what Jaguar are doing. This team lives and breathes because of my involvement in it. Christian Horner could easily make that argument 12 months ago. Now, however, the problem for Christian Horner is that it's become self-evident that it's not him, it's Max. And therein lies the issue. When you're making decisions with a view to keep Christian Horner, and you're not addressing the elephant in the room that is Max Verstappen's future as going concern at Red Bull Racing, then Houston, you have a problem. This is what James Allen says. Is quite good. It's brilliant from Allen, the way he words it. Go on, I'll play the clip.
If this season has proved anything, it's that the reason that Red Bull are winning is Max, or why they're competitive is Max, and so he's been able to prove that this year. So I think that also changed. So that argument wasn't as convincing as it was 12 months ago, and that's one of the reasons why it didn't work this time around.
It didn't work this time around. So Christian Horner would have gone cap in hand and said, "Listen, just give me the keys. I'll turn this ship around. I'm Christian. It's me that built this house. That is Oracle Red Bull Racing. This is my house. Leave it to me. Like, just, you know what I mean?" And look, the argument didn't hold water this time. John, what has Mr. Windsor said about this? Well, Mr. Windsor thinks that it would make sense for Max Verstappen to pause, take a step back from the F1 wood to see the F1 trees, and make a decision about 2027 in 2026, having seen all the cars on track. That's what Mr. Windsor would say, I think. Easy when Oscar was on iRacing in a couple's lobby. Was he? Jeez. I mean, Oscar's going to... We'll talk about Oscar Piastri tomorrow and Lando Norris and the McLaren dynamic that ensues. If Merck gives Max a contract, where can it... So too, Space Ghost, you make a good point that there is a certain level of flexibility that comes with a Red Bull contract as it is. I mean, 3 a.m. sim racing, Imola Grand Prix last year, that might have been a step too far, but I don't know, he can go and race GT racing at the Nordschleife, do you know what I mean, and set a lap record because Red Bull grants him that liberty. But I would put forth that he will have more. He will have, if he goes to Mercedes, I would hypothesize that it will have more sponsorship obligations. He will, because Mercedes are more of a they're more of a corporate F1 bellwether, if that makes sense. And with them comes a level of a sponsorship responsibility that I don't think Red Bull Racing have. But I think they'll bend over back. They won't even matter. Whatever contract you want, Max, that's what they'll have to give him. It is that important that you get this dude. The dude that Franz Tost said is worth anywhere between 2 and 3 tenths on the rest of the field. Right to see Christian Horner in that seat, or will he be on the wall like usual? So you won't see Christian Horner. So Christian Horner, the official line on Christian Horner, that he's still a Red Bull employee, but that smacks of gardening leave, meaning that he'll still be in contract so that he can't just up and leave and join another team and take with him all of the Red Bull Racing intellectual property. The rumour, word on the F1 curb, is that as at January of next year, he'll be free to go and do whatever he wants to do as he sees fit. The rumour then is that potentially Alpine will be his next destination for a couple of different reasons, not as your standard team principal, as a minority shareholder. That's what he'll come back as. And again, potentially with a buyout, like there's all this stuff going around that, I don't know, potentially shouldn't be, it's unsubstantiated as of yet. But if you know anything about Christian, and again, the one lesson, the Aesop's fable as far as Christian's tenure and his ultimate demise and dismissal, is that all could have been avoided had he done the buyout thing, had he leveraged some equity, because then he would have had a say in whether he got sacked or not. Same thing with Toto. Who's going to sack Toto? Toto is the owner and team principal. So what, Toto's going to sack him? So he will have an influence. And this is the double jeopardy of being a CEO, a dude on the board, a shareholder even, and a team principal, because you're the employee in addition to the shareholder. Do you know that it's weird? It's this weird, like, shouldn't happen, shouldn't be allowed to happen. But it is techie. Right, chat, I'm going to run. I need to go and log back on and do some work. But you guys have been legends as per usual. James, you're an absolute legend. I appreciate you. Victor, thank you so much for all the donations. Matthew Brown, as per usual, legend of the piece. Safak too. You guys are legends. Turtle Dove, if you're watching, get well soon. Sending you strength as per usual. Between, ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury, now and next time, the prosecution rests. No further questions, Your Honour.